taste. Busting makes me feel good.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate movies. I'm your host, Jay Light. Joining me today, all the way from Idlewild, California, it's Zara Mizrahi.
Hi. Thanks
Zara.
for having me.
Of course. Happy to have you. It's good to see you. Zara and I go way back in LA stand-up comedy. I feel like I met you pretty quick after I moved to LA.
Yeah, where did we meet? Like Flappers or something?
It must have been when I was still working at Flappers.
I think that's what it was. Oh, I just put that together. Oh my God, it's the same Jay. That's so funny.
Same Jay. Different
Same
hair,
Jay.
different glasses.
Different decade.
Different decade.
Yeah.
I've traveled back in time, and you've traveled forward. You've gone into the future. Now you're doing VO stuff. You're doing a lot of stand-up. You just had a role on Marvel's MODO on Hulu.
That's right. Yeah.
Very exciting stuff.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a really fun show. I loved working on it. It was cool to be like, because I was in the writer's room for that show as well, so it was like kind of cool to see it from the ground up, and just kind of really see how a show gets made from like literally an idea to like being on the production end, like, you know, playing a role on it and seeing how it's recorded and the table reads. It's just all super fascinating. So it just felt very lucky to be able to be a part of it.
That's very cool. How long was the timeline for that? Because I know for animated shows, sometimes it can be much longer than your average, you know, like typical scripted sitcom.
Yeah, that's true. And it did take a while. I mean, you're talking about just post, right?
Oh, I mean, even from like writer's room, figuring out scripts to, you know, a finished episode. Yeah.
So it was interesting because the room was 20 weeks and then they had to have all episodes finished by the end of that time. And they didn't kind of like finish an episode, move on. It was sort of like, I mean, each episode had its time, but everything had to be finished like by the end of that 20 weeks. And then when the table reads happened kind of like all at once, I mean, not on the same day, but like very close together. And like, that was fascinating. Yeah, the timeline was apparently unusual. It was the only show I had worked on, so I don't have a reference. The only show I've been in the room for, I mean.
Gotcha.
But apparently that was unusual. And then the post-production took like a year. Because it was stop motion too. So they had they had to make all the dolls, or puppets, I think they're called shit. You're
gonna have the people from Stupid Buddy banging down your door now.
I know they really don't like that. I know. I feel so bad because everyone who doesn't know what they're talking about calls it dolls, and then I'm that guy. So it took them forever to like build them and make them, and then they also made it. They made it 2D afterwards also. Like they kind of mixed two mediums together, which was kind of fascinating. Yeah, I love the way it looks. It came out, I think, really awesome. And the cast was great. I mean, it was just, I mean, obviously only so much work for me, but like as a finished product, it's like, holy shit, the hours that went into that is crazy. Like, yeah. Animated shows are like no joke.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, everybody should go definitely check that out. It's available on Hulu. And this TV show that you worked on, obviously very different from the movie that you wanted to talk about today. Very different vibes. One's a wacky, superhero-y comedy, and the other is a very sad, gray, meditative movie set in Portland. And that is 2021's Pig. It's this year. It came out this year, this July. Right. Nicolas Cage, Alex Wolff, a truffle pig. Zara hated it.
The worst fucking thing of all time. What the fuck was that? Like, was it a movie? I still can't tell. Or was it like a 90-minute montage that literally went nowhere? Did you like it?
I did.
What?
We're going to disagree a lot on this one, Zara. I watched it on a plane last week when I was going to visit my family for Thanksgiving. And I was thankful because I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to like pay to rent this. It's just on this Delta flight. And I watched it and I was mesmerized.
Oh my God.
And
on a plane is even harder to get into. I feel like.
Because watching a movie on a plane, it really is like the X factor for if it's a good movie or a bad movie. I think based on like your own personal taste, you're not going to be able to pay attention to a movie on a plane if it's bad. There's too much other distractions going on. You'll fall asleep. If you are watching a movie and it's good though on a plane, it's like heightened good. Like I think you're much more like, I think there's like scientific evidence for this that like you're much more likely to cry at a movie on a plane or be more emotionally involved on a plane.
Yeah, isn't alcohol even more effective on a plane? Like you get drunker faster when you're at that altitude or something. It's the
altitude, yeah, and so it must have something on your emotions too. And I'm trying to like take that out of it because I know that I watched this movie on the plane and I liked it, and I probably liked it. I'd have to watch it again on the ground here on sea level to know whether or not I really, really liked it as much as I did. But I feel like we took away totally different movies here. Like I watched it and I think I maybe expected something different than what you expected going in. So like tell me about your first time when you saw it in theaters.
Yeah. It was marketed as a John Wick movie. The trailer, it makes it seem like an action movie, like he's going to take revenge on.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I didn't get that vibe watching the trailer. I saw the trailer and I was like, Nicolas Cage is in this, great, I'm sold.
Well, that's I think what everybody thought, and like that's I think why people in the theater were like pumped to see it. That's why I kept hearing about it because it was like. Everyone, I mean, not everybody, but like a lot of people just love Nick Cage. And not only did he wasn't Nick Cage in that movie, number one, but like number two, it was just like it didn't deliver on what it said it was going to be at all. And even look, like even if trailers are misleading, that's fine. I can get over it. The movie sucked. Like,
oh boy. Zara.
The fake movie that they weren't honest about also wasn't good. So that's my issue.
I'm going to do the thing that I used to do on earlier episode of this podcast, and I'm not going to do it now, which is I'm not going to try and change your mind about the movie. But I'm so interested as like why we had such different experiences watching this movie. So you watched it, you went in there kind of expecting like a John Wick, Nicolas Cage ass-kicking movie where he's trying to fuck people up because they stole his pig.
I mean, I guess that's what I expected, but that's only one part of the problem. But continue.
Well, I'm curious as to like, because there's none of that in the movie, really.
Right.
The closest he gets to maybe any sort of anger is when he's frantically searching the kitchen for the hidden like underground fight club place where he also gets the shit beaten out of him.
Which leads nowhere.
Yeah.
Which leads nowhere, which has no significance to the story whatsoever. That's the part you like.
Right. Now, okay. I think what intrigues me the most is like you watched this movie and you stayed in the theater the whole time.
Yeah, it was funny because I was with my husband and my brother, and my husband turned to us and was like, we're leaving, right? Like after 10 minutes in, like this is the biggest piece of shit. And then my brother was like, no, we'll stay. Cause it's like, he's a purist and he really wanted to like be wrong about how bad it seemed.
Okay.
The first 4 minutes were like interesting. The cinematography is actually pretty cool. And I like the color schemes and like some of the shots I thought were interesting. And we're like, okay, that's kind of cool. And like it started out with like, okay, this bond between him and the pig. And then like the pig honestly had more character development than anyone else in the movie, but that's like a separate issue. But like, we were like, okay, let's just see if this gets any better. And I was just like, fuck man, we should have left.
That's so interesting that like, so do you feel like it's because you felt tricked so early on as to like the premise of the movie based on the marketing versus what you actually started to watch and what you realized you were watching over the course of the movie? Do you feel like that led into not led into, that's not the right way to phrase it. Do you feel like that colored your opinion on the characters super early on in a way that was like irreversible?
No, because like even though I was surprised by the fact that it wasn't the movie they said it was, I would have been okay with it if the movie that it was good. The characters made zero sense. The plot, there is none. That their focus was all over the place. Like it's about first it's about him and the pig, and then it's about the dude, the character Amir, the younger guy,
right? And
like there's no reason for them to be hanging out. They hate each other. They're like he comes to like
well,
he comes
they're doing
back to
business
rescue.
Together. That's really the only reason that they're hanging out.
No, but then they were like, I'm done with you, and then like Nick Cage like unleashes and kicks his car, and then he like comes back to save him, not for business reasons. He was like, I figured you could need help. It's like, that's not, at that point it wasn't business anymore, but there was nothing that made it personal.
I think there was. I think it's that he has this respect for him on a professional level, right? Because like, so for people who haven't seen the movie, the premise is, besides all the pig taking stuff, right, is that Nicolas Cage is playing this hermit in the woods who used to be a super renowned chef in Portland, which by the way, I will say,
don't buy for 1 second.
Yeah, I will say that like, even as somebody who like has become more like entrenched in the culinary world just by working in food TV shows, the idea of like a celebrity chef who has not appeared on anything, just as somebody who's like, I've got a bunch of restaurants or I've got like a renowned restaurant, that's not really, that's like the one point of the plot where I was like, does anybody actually believe this?
Right. No. And he doesn't seem like anyone who cares about detail, about like presentation. I mean, dude, take a fucking shower. Like the whole movie, he had like blood all over his face, and he's like going into nice restaurants looking like fucking Bradley Cooper in A Star Is Born when he's like passed out drunk with like blood all over his face, and we're supposed to believe he's like this respected guy. Like none of it made sense.
It's like, did you ever see Mandy?
No.
Okay, so Mandy, that's a revenge movie, and that's like the kind of pulpy John Wick, crazy revenge Nick Cage. And they basically have like the same amount of blood on them the entire time in both Mandy and in Pig. And in Mandy, everybody's like, oh my God, what happened? And in Pig, everyone is kind of just like accepting it, which is weird.
Yeah, no one mentions like, are you okay? Like I think once somebody was like, do you need a bandage?
Yeah.
Like that was it.
Would you like medical attention? Nick Cage just grunts and doesn't, and just shrugs it off.
It's so dumb. Sorry, continue.
And as somebody who did really like this movie, I do think that going down into like this weird underground chef fight club, which, I mean, I like the fantasticalness of that. But having a guy who, the person who runs the fight club is like, you don't have any value. And then Nick Cage writes his name on the board in blood or something, I guess. And everybody is like, oh my God. That's something that's the only part of the movie that I was like, I don't know how true this feels unless you're really, I mean, everybody reacted to it well in the movie, which I guess they're supposed to, if you're supposed to be like, this is the John Wick, this is the Baba Yaga of the Portland culinary scene. But it's just like, that's the only part that I was like, this seems a little weird. Like, this is a little bit too heavy-handed compared to the rest of the movie, which I feel like is of a more touching and interesting subject matter than just this guy who's like, yeah, I'm going to use my name to get the shit beaten out of me by some guy in a vest.
I mean, I felt like the whole movie was just those scenes. They wanted to like prove his importance without doing any of the work to get there. It was just like, this is a scene that happens when someone is revered. Here's another scene where someone is like important. Like when he talks to the chef in that nice restaurant, when he's like dressed like all fucking crazy with people in the restaurant in suits, and then he's in there with blood on his face and no one says anything about it. And then like the chef comes out to talk, and then he says one thing that makes the chef like crack and go insane and down a whole glass of wine for no reason.
On the clock in front of his full restaurant.
Yeah, in front of customers at an open table, like, and then like laughs maniacally, and then all of a sudden he's crazy. It's like, what is going on? Like, I felt like the whole movie was full of those things of like they were trying to make moments that had no value because his character made no sense.
It's so interesting that like I don't know how we came away from this movie with such different takes on it, because like that scene for me was the scene that made the movie go from okay, this movie's pretty good to oh shit, this movie. And it's because of
really? That's so funny.
And I think the line, the sequence that did it for me in that scene was Nick Cage's monologue, where he is talking about the value of doing something that you love and like putting your passion behind something that you believe in. Like that part, I was like, oh, I get it. I get why this movie is as well liked as it is.
But he's not passionate about anything. He even doesn't even search for the pig for the whole movie. What is he passionate about? The pig search is like not the movie either.
Well, he was passionate about, at this point in his life, he's passionate about having, he loves the pig, which he admits. Even though he's not fucking the pig, he does love the pig.
Yeah, but like if he's not even searching for it through the whole movie, that love for the pig is like not real. I think like that's not the movie.
He's searching for it for almost the entire movie.
I disagree.
Up until he doesn't have... Up until he realizes, which by the way, we can spoil on this podcast. Okay, up until he realizes that the pig is dead and is no longer searching for the pig.
I mean, I disagree. I think there were several scenes that had nothing to do with the search for the pig. Like
what? Which
like
scenes?
the fight scene is one. Like the restaurant scene, he did ask about the pig, but it wasn't about the guy didn't lead him to the next step. It was like somehow they jumped, like it wasn't the chef who gave him the next step. One scene literally did not lead to the next. So the search for the pig was like, it felt not real. Like
no, the chef did give him, because the chef said it was the guy's dad. The chef said it was Amir's dad.
Didn't Amir say that it was his dad? Like he gave up that information.
Amir told Nick Cage that he told his dad about their relationship, but the chef was the one who revealed that it was the dad.
Okay, so maybe so I guess I'm wrong about that scene. But there was another scene.
The Fight Club, yes, the Fight Club. The only thing that they're doing is it seems like that's just in there to make you realize like how big of a character Nick Cage is supposed to be in this scene, or in the Portland scene. And I can't remember how that has to do with the actual hunt for the pig. Yeah,
maybe I'm forgetting which scene led nowhere. Because
it might be the Fight Club scene. It might be just to have like a cool shot in a
maybe, but there was also
hotel lobby.
Yeah, but also it totally changes focus and it becomes about that kid and his dad, and the family struggle. It's like, what the fuck? Like,
oh yeah. So let's talk about so the second half of the movie, basically, it does shift, and there's a shift from basically as soon as what happens when Nick Cage goes to talk to Alex Wolff's dad, Amir's dad, who is the truffle king of Portland, which.
Like not a
weird
title,
and ridiculous, not a title. It sounds so ridiculous, and I feel very silly saying that, especially because I know in your mind you're like, how can Jay like this movie where there's a truffle king and a fight club and Nick Cage is a weird Santa hermit who hasn't showered in years?
But he was also like he was like, I'll give you so much money to walk away from this, as if there's this huge secret going on, and then you're like, oh, what kind of weird conspiracy is going on? And then you find out the fucking pig is just dead, and he just didn't want to tell him in that moment. He'd rather give Nick Cage $25,000 than to just say what he said at the end. I hated it.
Oh, actually, here's another part I completely forgot. There's a part I want to hear what your opinion of it was. So early on, when they're hunting for the pig for the very first sequence, So the way it pans out is Nick Cage goes, he gets beaten up and his pig gets stolen. The next morning, he goes to talk to a lady who is a truffle dealer in the woods. And as soon as Nick Cage says, somebody took my pig, and she's like, those motherfuckers, and knows where to go immediately. Yeah. What did you think of that whole sequence where they're going like this lady shifts into overdrive and then they go talk to junkies in a trailer?
I mean, again, so easy, right? Like what? It's so lame. It's like the search is either too easy or it's non-existent or it's like smoke and mirrors for nothing behind it. So it's like, I don't understand what value this is supposed to have. And like the pig is fucking dead, so there was no reason for him to do this in the first place. And like the reveal, like seeing him find out that the pig is dead is not meaningful for me. Like,
really,
why is that interesting?
Because he's lost a bunch in his life, Zara. He lost his wife. The pig is the only thing he has to love now, and then he lost the pig, and now he has to figure out what to do with his life after that.
But you don't see him figure out what to do with his life after that. You don't see, like, nothing has... I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, I think I must be in the minority because people in the theater seem to really respond to it. And I'm just like, yo, like, it's not interesting just to see an actor, struggle inherently. Like, that is not what a movie is to me. And like, I feel like that's part of like a bigger, I mean, I don't know if we like should really step away from the movie itself, but I feel like it's a bigger problem with movies
Let's
now.
Step away. Yeah. I mean, so this movie it's got a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. So you were in this version, though, all of the reviews are praising that it is a movie where Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff to some degree. I mean, Nick Cage is the guy who's getting all the headlines in this movie, or in the review space, rather. They're all talking about how he plays it so subtle, and he's not as like crazy and hysterical the way he is in his other movies. So do you think I mean, the way you put it is it's so eloquent. The simplicity of he's feeling stuff and he's not going crazy. And I'm saying a way less good version than what you just said. I apologize.
No. I don't even know if that's what I said. I don't mind that he's not going crazy. I'm just like, I just don't understand if someone's not like, I literally don't know what the takeaway is of that movie. What did you come away with it being like, oh, he learned that, or he changed what he thought in any way? Like, what was that journey? I literally don't know what he literally, one of the last scenes is him asking for a salted baguette at a bakery. And then he's like, and then she gives him one, and then he's like, do you have another one? And then she's like, yes. And then he walks away talking about the curtains of the bakery and then leaves. It's like, what is the takeaway of this movie? I don't get it.
So here's my takeaway, and I'll tell you my takeaway, and then I do want to talk more about this sort of, as we step away from the movie a little bit, about like your core issue with it being the way that this movie is perceived, versus like this sort of the larger problem that you see in other films of this style, right? My takeaway is that this movie is about grief, and it's about processing grief. Nicolas Cage's character goes through that. At the very beginning, you see he's unable to bring himself to listen to the tape of his wife playing, which you later find out at the end of the movie is her playing a song for him. And he also has to deal with the grief of losing the pig at the very end of the movie, when he cries in total silence and they cut all the sound out. Device I figured you probably also hated in the movie.
That's why I call it a montage, because it's like nothing, because there is no story. You just watch this guy struggle.
And then, but that's Nicolas Cage's journey, right? As he has to sort of relive the grief of his wife dying, and go through a scene or go through a world that he used to be an integral part of, and have to relive these relationships, and then even to the point where he's like making the kind of food that the exact dish that Alex Wolff's dad had with his wife, who Alex Wolff said was dead, and it turns out is just in a coma. But that grief is also dealt with, and more so from Alex Wolff's perspective, sort of a little bit from Alex Wolff's dad perspective. But that is that's that journey, is like Alex Wolff learns how to not be a sort of brash dick businessman driving a Camaro, and figures out how to like actually rectify not just, his relationship with his dad, but sort of more actively deal with the grief of his mom no longer being an active part of his life. That's my takeaway, is I think we both got to see Nicolas Cage finally process the grief of losing his wife, by having to go through the grief of losing the pig. And
I mean, I have a few issues with that. Sorry, no, go ahead. And Alex Wolff going through the journey of becoming more of a person and not just like putting on a persona. But those were my takeaways. And how you came away from this movie and it just felt like you didn't take either of that stuff away. Well, I get really frustrated when this is why writing is really hard, because you could think you're doing one thing. Like, I love being surprised in movies, right? Mm-hmm. Or documentaries. But it's a fine line between that and then losing your focus and or misleading the audience in a deceptive way. And I find it really frustrating going scene after scene of them building up what happened to this pig. And he's like on the search for the pig, and they build up like, oh, hey, the really dangerous people, and then the guy's gonna pay him to walk away, and like the restaurant scene, which like I individually have problems with each of those scenes, but like whatever. Like, if you're building up this whole thing and then it just turned out the pig died when they tried to take it the first time, there was no buildup. So like that, all of that literally was worthless because they didn't do anything with the pig. The pig died. So like, what was all of that? You misled us.
Yeah, the pig's a MacGuffin. The pig doesn't really
and I feel like purpose. And like you can't have. If the inciting incident, which is the pig being taken, literally turns into nothing, that is not a successful movie. That's not a true movie. And that's not like, that's not an honest one either, because they don't deliver on what, like they make it an action scene. He's hit in the face with the door. And I actually thought that scene was done really well because it's so surprising.
Right,
it's like really quaint in this like cool cabin in the woods, and then like the door and like that's so scary, and then you hear the sound of the pig and you're like, no. So of course you're gonna be like, you have to fucking get that pig back. But then it's like, not only do I feel like the search for that pig is like lame and disjointed and like fucking boring, but the pig literally died moments later and we just didn't know. So everything he was uncovering wasn't real. And all those people had no reason to like put this smoke and mirrors out, because the pig fucking like, also the fact that they all know what happened to this one pig. It's like, I just don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. It's like they tried to, I think, do a lot of different things in this movie because it wasn't focused. So they tried to make it like, oh, the pig was actually dead, actually. And it's not even about the pig, really. It's about like Amir and his family. They turn it into an indie drama because they couldn't deliver on the action part.
When do you think, in the world of the movie, when do you think everybody knew that the pig died? Because I don't know. I didn't get the impression that they knew that until basically the dad had the pig in his possession.
Well, but he said that they were just really rough with the pig when they took it, so it died. So it was like very early on.
I wonder. And this is, I think, some of the, I mean, there's other family dynamics that, like, we are not privy to in the movie. and I can't even. So I don't even want to speculate on that. But I am interested in. I think you're making some good points from like a writing perspective, especially as we learn that the pig's MacGuffin, and not being surprised by the pig's death, or feeling like that undercuts the potential for growth. I totally get that, and I think that is a point that I had not considered. And I am sort of intrigued now, like I said, to sort of talk about like the larger issue that you've seen in this movie and other movies. And of course, I'm sure I'm probably wrong on this, but it sounds to me like you might not be as interested in a movie that is a character study compared to a movie that is more actively plot driven and allows the characters to sort of grow based on the plot, instead of just like, oh, we have to sort of watch them deal with their turmoil or whatever situation they're in.
I know why you're saying that, but I disagree because
Sure.
this movie was neither of those things.
Okay.
So like, to me, it wasn't a character driven plot because being able to listen to a tape at the end is not growth, and like him asking for a salted baguette and like noticing curtains is not growth. And
that scene, by the way, I'm totally, the bakery scene felt so weird. It was such a
so
weird scene.
Weird. And
I was like, where did this come from? How are we supposed to? Is she his daughter? I have no idea.
No, for real. Like, what was the relationship there? And like, and honestly, the most growth might have come from Amir, but he's not the hero of the movie, so he shouldn't have had the most growth.
That's true.
And I didn't even know what really made him want to go back to his mom. It just felt really unfocused to me. And like, so I don't think it was successful in a plot way because for the reasons we talked about.
It just didn't work on either level for you.
Yeah, like living in the woods is not a personality. Being a chef, is not a personality. It's a piece of backstory, but I also just don't buy that either. So like, it just felt like they were just like putting it, like peppering things in to like check the box of we're doing character work here. And I just didn't buy it.
Are there other movies that you feel this way about that are in this sort of vein where you mentioned, obviously this isn't a big one. This is the one the whole freaking episode's about. Yeah. But are there other movies that you feel like have sort of tricked audiences into like thinking they're good when they are or perhaps missing like areas that could have been better in the script and areas that could have made more sense for that character growth to have happened?
That's interesting. There are, and I'm sure I could name a better example than what I'm about to say, because this only did it on like one or two levels for me, but so it's gonna sound like I hate this movie, but I don't. But Parasite was a huge mislead. And like the trailer of that movie was like, this is a Korean horror movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it wasn't at all. It was a dark comedy. Mm-hmm. And there were several plot things that they dropped in the movie that you think the movie's going to be about, and it's not. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if we should get specific because it's like not what the episode's about, but like then it turns into a horror movie in the last 4 minutes, and then you're just and then it's like, wait, what the fuck was that? Like, wait, now that dude's like a crazy murderer, like all that shit. You're just like. That was my biggest problem with Parasite. I was like, that's not, like, it's not true to what it said it was going to be. And then also what is the point of this movie? I felt like they were trying to make a few different points.
Okay.
But I didn't hate the movie. Like, I thought it was really cool for a lot of reasons. The cinematography is by far the best part of that movie to me.
Oh, of Parasite?
Yeah, like the directing and the sets and like the production design. Like, I thought that was fucking brilliant. And the acting was really good. But whatever, we're not talking about that movie.
We're not talking about that. But yeah, I mean, you actually, you know what? This is sort of branching off of that too. There seems to be, and I do think this is like an award season thing, where you often see a character study, I guess. And I only say that because there are a lot of movies that this gets brought up about that I haven't seen. Where it's like a name actor who everybody's like, oh my God, I love this person in this thing.
It's my least favorite thing ever. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
And they're playing like a tortured role. And all of a sudden, because that's just like the baseline of what they're doing, they become a member of the conversation. It sounds like that's also a sort of element of this movie that you also don't like across other movies like that. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the issues I have.
Sure.
Character-driven movies actually happen to be some of my favorites, or character-driven shows. Like 6 Feet Under is a really good example of like not a super plotty show, but like because the characters are who they are, it's fascinating. It's like a play. Like, I love that shit. What I don't like is when they think that that's inherently enough, that you just put someone in like crazy makeup and a coat, and then you're like, now look really sad, and because your pig got taken, and then like he does that through the whole movie, and I didn't see really any change with him. He was sad about the pig when he found out it died, but to me that's not growth to me. And like we said, like listening to a tape is not growth. Like noticing curtains isn't growth. Like that's not what a successful character study is to me.
But is cooking again growth? No, because he cooked the whole movie.
And apparently he did that before the movie started. So
I mean, hey, look. Like I said at the beginning of this, I'm not going to try and change your mind, and I'm glad that I'm glad that I understand why you didn't like this movie, because I watched this movie and I was like, how could somebody not like this? And I think your points are valid, and I think that what I hope is that there are other people who come out of the woodwork now and show up out of that 97%, and they're like, no, this is. Zara's right here. This is not what anybody should be saying, holding up as like the paragon of acting.
I just think the bar is really low. Like I mean, right now actors are driving what movies are. Like, you know, people think like the streamers have cracked the code. They realize that if you put an actor that people recognize in a movie, it doesn't matter if the script makes sense always. It doesn't matter if the plot is interesting. People will watch it if there's an actor there who they like. And for me that's an issue. But of course everything's subjective, and I can't like explain why something is interesting or not interesting to you know. So like I know I'm in the minority, but I watched Memento last night and I was like, holy fuck, dude, this movie is so like creative and interesting, and like I forgot how cool it was, and like that's a definite difference between like what it was a couple decades ago and what it is now, where like what I would call like montage movies are like successful. Yeah. Like these moody pieces where like you're supposed to feel something without any plot or character to support it. And like I think I am often in the minority, and I'm the only one who feels that way. So like I have these conversations often, but I definitely feel left out of being able to enjoy stuff, you know.
If this is how you feel about, you know, if you feel like you're in the minority in a lot of conversations, to help you become more the majority, what are some of your favorite movies? Like, what are the movies that you think, not necessarily, obviously we talked a lot about John Wick being like a better version of what this movie is trying to do from a sort of like a revenge tale story. But what are your favorite movies? Like, what do you think are the maybe ones that people don't talk about enough, that people should be talking about a lot, that you love? Yeah,
that's a really good question. Fuck. I mean, anytime someone's like, what's your favorite? It's like so easy to freeze and be like, wait, what is a movie?
Oh yeah. What is movie?
Yeah. What is movie?
I love this one, Pig, with Nicolas Cage.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm trying to think of ones I rewatched recently that I thought were real. Like, I thought Pleasantville was fascinating to watch again.
I've never seen Pleasantville.
Oh, Pleasantville was really cool. Like,
is that the one where they get sucked into the TV show?
Yeah. And like that has a really clear arc to me. Everybody like even secondary characters change in that movie. And I would say that's like a totally character-driven movie. So that's one that I love. I mean, I love thrillers. I think Seven is like such an incredible thriller.
Seven.
Always Seven. I mean, fuck, what are my favorite movies? Like, I mean, David Fincher is definitely one of my favorite directors. Oh, I just rewatched Star 80.
Star 80. I've never even heard of that. What is that?
Which is great. Oh, it's oh my God, I'm going to forget the name of the goddamn director. Hold on, from the 70s. It's like a thriller from, I mean, he did like so many 70s movies. I can't believe this always happens when I'm
Star 80. No, I didn't want to just search Wikipedia again.
Bob Fosse is the director. I mean, it's a fucking great, really interesting, dark movie.
Okay. What we got in this?
I'm
Mariel
like,
Hemingway, Eric Roberts.
Oh, early 80s. I was wrong. Yeah,
okay.
Like, so, I mean, dude, I just love movies that make sense. That's really my thing. I really like it when, like, one scene leads to the next and things happen that seem to develop from what just happened before.
Okay.
That's kind of my brand, you know?
Look, hey, that's a good brand to cultivate. And I, as somebody who is on the flip side of, like, I am much more typically a fan of movies where it doesn't necessarily have to be as plot driven or character driven and just make more of a vibe occur.
Right.
Which I said, and hey, that's not necessarily the best way to watch movies either all the time, but it's what works for me. And I am very glad that now I understand why somebody could not like this movie. That's the best thing. And I'm going to go watch Pleasantville now.
That's so funny. Yeah. I was just talking to my cousin who's 25 and he like just graduated from film school and we were talking about Malignant and I was like, but the story didn't totally make sense. And he was like, who cares? And I was like, that's the issue. Like that is the problem with like this new phase of like movie making. It's like, It doesn't really have to make sense as long as it's like a cool vibe and there's some cool images and you can watch it in the background, like while you're cooking or you're on your phone and you can like occasionally tune in and see some, like, to me, that's not a movie. Yeah. But like, again, I'm in the minority. Like no one else seems to mind that things don't really make sense anymore.
I think there might be a lot more people that mind than you think. And I hope that some of those people speak up after this episode drops. So, by the way, if you are on Zara's side and you do think that movies shouldn't be just a vibe, where can they tell you that on the social media, Zara?
Yeah, totally. So tell me how much you love Pig at on Instagram at Zara Mizrahi, which is Zaramizrahi on Instagram, and then it's the Zara Mizrahi on Twitter if you prefer that very busy platform.
The tweets versus the Instas. Yeah. You can find me at Diet J on all of those platforms. And jlightcomedy.com for show dates. I'm actually not going to be in the U.S. for some stuff, but if there's anybody who's listening to this who lives in Portugal, I'm going to be doing some shows there in like a couple weeks. So keep your eyes peeled.
That's awesome.
Very fun.
That's so cool. I want to hear about that. Maybe
I'll let you know as soon as I get back. What the English language in Portugal scene is like. And if you like the show, please consider subscribing on Patreon. You get bonus episodes. You get access to my film library for streaming purposes for yourself. Fun stuff. Zara, thanks again.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad we were finally able to do this.
Same. Oh, my God. So great. Hey, everybody. This is Blockbusting. This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.